I can't believe we made it through 3 days. This is the last program we're going to have here on stage as we start to close out Imaging USA 2025. And I couldn't think of a better way to do that than with these three amazing artists, Dixie Dixon, Boal, and Jerry Ghionis. How many people out there feel like they know branding and how to brand their product? A little of this, a little of that. Any of you tuning in, hopefully it's going to be a great session for you guys as well. If you don't know this, just a little house cleaning. Every program that we've captured these 3 days will be up on Nikon's site, the Nikon Live webpage, and you can go back and watch them as many times as you want, including what's about to be a big debacle with these three artists, because it's going to get out of hand. I just have a feeling. Put this combo together, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. But we really wanted to really get into the branding process, what these guys are doing to become a little more aware to their customers. How do they communicate with customers? How do they work within their communities, the things that they do to help bolster their business, but also serve people around them? So before we get started, just a little intro for each of you. Dixie, tell everybody about you, what you do, where you're from, in case anyone out there that I doubt this is true doesn't know who Dixie Dixon is.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, guys. Welcome today. I'm Dixie Dixon. I'm a commercial fashion advertising photographer and film director, and I actually live in Fort Worth, Texas. So it was a quick 30-minute drive over here, and so excited to be here.
Dallas, Texas.
Yes.
But from Colorado, Boal. Deanne, tell everybody about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Boal. My business is Smitten and Swoon Photography. I'm based out of Boulder, Colorado, and I take newborns, children, family, portraiture, and have been in business for 14 years. I'm happy to be here.
And Mr. Jerry Ghionis, a little bit about Jerry, please.
So, born in Melbourne, Australia. I now live in Vegas. I am your favorite Australian. I just want to make sure.
Yes, you are.
I want to make sure
Melissa
you know that.
is, but that's okay.
Thank you.
You too.
Been photographing for 30 years. I've been teaching for 24, 25 years. I photograph portrait, wedding, fashion, boudoir, commercial, bit of filmmaking as well. So I love it all.
And I think all three of them are very humble, because if you do go out and search them, you'll see some of the accolades, awards, and amazing work that they do. It's very interesting to me. I want to start with you, Deanne. Dixie Dixon, Jerry Ghionis, that's your business, that's your name, that's what your brand is. Why Smitten and Swoon? It's cool.
Thanks. Well, it was hard to find a business name with the apostrophe in my first name. So that's really I wish I had like a fun and fancy answer for coming up with Smitten and Swoon, but sometimes your name just doesn't work or it's already taken. My name has an apostrophe after that D, so I can't use that as a URL. And so when I was thinking of a name for my business, for my website, everything was already taken. And I thought of Smitten and Swoon, and I looked it up, and it wasn't taken. I was like, all right, we're going to go with that.
But I like it. People being smitten with things,
Yeah.
swoons.
Yeah.
Swoons feel so good, so it works.
Yeah.
You guys think it works?
Yes.
I think it works.
Absolutely.
So have you ever searched yourself?
Not in a long time.
All right. Well, I thought it would be very interesting to open this up with 3 slides, 3 images that speak to these guys. And if I did a search for Dixie Dixon, like, what would I find? And there's a whole body of things, content that pops up that speaks to Dixie. You look very surprised. I'm not putting anybody on the spot, and trust me, I texted that there was nothing offensive or rude that will pop up for any of you.
It's funny you have to say that.
But this is pretty amazing. That look at all this content that pops up. Does that impress you? Does that make you feel like you're doing all the right things? What's your first thought?
Well, I think it feels really good. I mean, I think it's great when it comes up on Google. I actually hired a search engine optimization company 2 years ago, and it has made the most huge impact in my business that I could ever imagine, from getting just people reaching out to me, wanting to work with me for different higher-end brand shoots and everything. Search engine optimization, if you can get higher on Google, man, it makes a huge difference without me even having to do advertising.
Well, that was my intent of doing this search, so we could talk a little about SEOs. And let's see what happens when we pull up Jerry Ghionis. Again, a page full of content, all kinds of links, Instagram pages, your training sites. You on Nikon USA as an ambassador, which, if I didn't mention, all 3 of them are Nikon ambassadors. How about that? Yes, you can let it go for these guys. This is pure talent. When you want to be connected with a brand, it speaks to our branding because we do not have ambassadors from everywhere and anywhere. We have relationships that start. Number one question I get asked within the program is, how do you choose an ambassador? It starts with relationships. We do projects with people. If we feel a good vibe and we see that they're fitting for what we're trying to do with the product line that is in order and what's to come, it's our brand just as much as it is anybody's. So you are basically a part of our family, but are part of our brand as well. So then I looked up Deanne and more content. They all look pretty shocked when they look back at the screen to see what's come up. But lots of education again. You look at different places that they say, Smitten and Swoon, Instagram, Deanne Boal, where you can put the apostrophe, I guess.
I did.
Yeah.
I just switched over. It was very scary to do.
It's a dangerous leap.
It felt like a dangerous leap on Instagram. I was Smitten and Swoon on Instagram, but when people would ask me my username, it just was a mouthful, and they're like, "What? Smitten and it?" And so I just cleaned it up and went with my name. So it's just d.annboal. That feels a little cleaner, but my business is still Smitten and Swoon. So.
See, I like the Smitten and Swoon, so
Yeah.
don't ever leave that.
Okay.
Please. All right, good. So basically, what I'd like to start with, I want to start with you, Jerry, and then you ladies as well. What does branding mean to you?
Yeah.
That's the thing is when you talk about branding, I think the first thing that most people think of, especially when you're inexperienced in business, is you think about a logo.
Yeah.
Okay, it's more than a logo. It's your identity. It's almost like an unwritten promise to your potential clients on what you're going to deliver. Here's the expectation that I'm going to exceed them. More importantly, I believe a brand is a feeling. So when you talk about a brand, you can talk about a car brand, you can talk about an individual, you can talk about a product or a service. Straight away, you think of the overwhelming feeling or lack of feeling that it gives you. So for me, when people ask me, Jerry, well, how do I improve my brand? Independent of whether you're an independent artist or you're a company brand with contractors, I say if your brand was a human, what human traits would you have? And then it humanizes it. Then you start to say, all right, I'd be happy, I'd be joyful, I'd be this. Well, is that reflected by your color schemes, your font, your energy when you walk into the studio, how you work with people on Zoom? So branding is how you make someone feel, in my opinion, and marketing, just for the Americans who don't understand my accent. For those who want to talk about marketing and branding is who do you want to be friends with? So identify your human traits as a company, and marketing is who do you want to be friends with. Once you humanize it, it makes things easier.
So Deanne, what does branding mean to you?
To me, branding is about authenticity. It's who you actually literally are. So it's not like I want to appear happy and joyful, but if you're more of a quiet person or you're moody and dark, that should be your brand. It's who you really are. And I feel like what you see on my website or what you see on my Instagram and in my work is what my house looks like. It's like how I write. It's how I am in the world. It's just who I am. And I think the longer you go, you can start with your brand thinking about a logo and like picking your colors. But as your brand evolves and as you continue in this photography journey and branding journey, I think it becomes more and more authentic and more about you and less about some name or some colors or some logo, which is why I felt like I could switch from my Instagram being Smitten and Swoon to being d.annboal, because it doesn't really matter. It's not about a name or a color or a logo for me. It's about authenticity.
Dixie, you've got not only the branding thing, the style thing going on for as long as I've known you. Everything sort of has evolved, but it starts from that same place. What does the branding mean to you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think these guys pretty much nailed that question, but I think ultimately people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And like Jerry said, if you can make them feel your brand by the logos, by the images that you put out there, everything should be like a cohesive unit and evoke the feeling, that authenticity that you were talking about when you're getting into it. I think it just keeps evolving. Like you should have seen the logo that I started out with. I had a tattoo artist actually design my logo, and a couple years in, I was like, this is so not me. So you kind of figure out the better that you get to know yourself, I think, the more that your brand is going to start to evolve and really shape into something that's really you, because it takes a while. It takes a couple years to really figure out what that brand brand is.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Can I interject really quick?
you can.
Yeah.
Dixie, I just want to say that I've known you for so long, and whenever there's a conversation about Dixie Dixon,
Yeah.
straight away you think of that hat, that smile, and that talent in a fun size. You're a fun size. So your branding is on point, but it is authentic. And you get such a great feeling, and obviously Deanne, you're my new bestie as well, so we're getting to know each other better and stuff. So, it's incredible that when that feeling is so distinct, effortlessly, and in an authentic way, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
So I think, if I'm correct, knowing you as long as Jerry, because I remember the day we met her together.
Yep.
I told that story when I brought her up on stage. You talked a lot about how your mama bear has helped you with styling along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because, when I was first starting out in college, she's like, you need to figure out a way to differentiate yourself from every other photographer. And she said, you love wearing hats. Why don't you try wearing a hat to every single shoot? And that becomes your thing. And so now I have a hat sponsor. You just never know how these things evolve when you just kind of show up authentically who you are. Like your thing may not be the hat. It may be wearing a cool glasses to set or cool cowboy boots like Deanne, like that whole cool Western look. But kind of finding things that are essentially you, I think is really good. If you think about the Apple CEO, Steve Jobs, he always had that black turtleneck on. It was very much Steve Jobs. So if you can figure out a signature thing to do over and over and over again, that kind of becomes your brand.
I'm going to beg for a compliment, but what about my kicks?
Yeah, I love your kicks. Sorry, I just saw Dean's right here.
All right, well, I'm glad you all brought up logos, because let's get started with logos. And what is the inspiration, Jerry, behind how you're creating a logo? What do you study things? Do you look at things? You just say, oh my God, that's beautiful. I love the colors. But talk about it all.
Yeah, so this was, I'd say, 15, 20 years ago. Let's just face it, my name is pretty boring. Jerry, it's not even my real name.
Not to me, big boy.
It's not even my real name. I'm Greek. My birth certificate is Kyriakos Ghionis. Now, you might say, why did you change it to Jerry? I didn't. My mum and the teacher I think it was in prep or grade 1, they said, well, we don't know, Kyriako, what's that English translation? And between them, they came up with Jerry. And it's Jerry in Greek is Gerasimo. So it's not even correct. The problem is I'm stuck with it. So I de-emphasize Jerry because it's boring. Ghionis, people have crucified my name my whole life. I remember in Mexico, I was introduced as Jerry Ghionis. And you know what that means.
I can see the possibility
but
of
I
that.
laughed the whole day. I think it was hysterical. Anyway, but so just an English lesson. A G and an H is a hard G. Ghionis. So I put an accent above the O to help people pronounce it. It's like a tone in Greek, Ghionis. And then the motif, it's sort of like, it looks sort of majestic, and there's a crown. So although I'm a guy, but I work with brides and women my whole career, so I wanted to add that little pink to soften the dark, heavy black. But we evolve, and it ended up changing. But I loved it for its time. But you evolve.
I'm glad you brought up names, because am I allowed to, Dixie, give a little history on your name? Or why don't you tell people how you came to Dixie?
Okay, absolutely. So if you don't know, a lot of people think my real name is Dixie. It is actually not my real name. My real name is Lindsay. There were 4 Lindsays on the soccer team growing up, and so my best friend nicknamed me Pixie Dixie at the time. And so I ended up, when I was choosing my website in college, like you said, the spelling is really tricky. And so my first name is actually spelled Lyndsay. And it was a tricky spelling with LindsayDixon.com. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go with Dixie. That's way easier to spell. It sounds kind of Texas. It sounds a little hokey. But I just ended up going with that because it's easy to remember.
You're kidding. It's a perfect fit. It's just a perfect fit. You guys think? I mean, Dixie Dixon. Lindsay Dixon. Beautiful, but not as good as Dixie Dixon. I'm just saying. Jerry, you have different iterations of, I noticed around, business cards or websites or training where you subtly change your logo. Why?
I think that as an artist you grow, and you grow in your sophistication level, and I looked at that logo and I thought it was no longer me. I wanted something that would grow, and also because I have many tentacles to my octopus, so to speak, I feel like because I have different products, I have workshops, I'm a working photographer, so now I've simplified it, and the word photographer, I can change that with different words, and looks good on white, looks good on black, and it's more me. And I think I'll have this for the rest of my career because it's simple, it's clean, and it represents who I am now.
And I noticed this iteration is also part of your training, so you removed the word photographer and put training in place, so it's a nice fit.
Yep.
But I would think that comfortable feel for the look keeps people, oh I get it, it's Jerry Ghionis, regardless of what it is he's teaching or he's actually presenting, right? Mm-hmm. So there's your training site, speak of the devil, so just a subtle change to the words, and now you've got that same look and feel, so it carries over to everything. Now, Deanne, we spoke about your logo a little bit. You said simple. You just wanted something simple.
Yeah, so just like both of them, my logo has evolved. I think as you evolve, you relax a little bit. You become more sophisticated. Everything just kind of settles down. I remember I used to talk in an email to clients that were booking me, and I would say we will do something. And my Instagram wasn't just at gmail.com. It was like info@smittenandswoon.com. I felt like I had to be a little more, I had to fake it to make it, I felt. But as you get comfortable as a professional, you can kind of relax, and I just say me, and my email is a Gmail account. And so at first my logo was turquoise. It was like turquoise and coral, complementary colors. But my work has so much gold in it. I like photograph with gold all the time. I live in a landscape of all gold in Colorado, and so I just made it gold.
And to me, it fits. Somehow that swoosh, the swoon, the switch, it just all comes together. It feels very peaceful to me. I don't know how everybody else feels, but it just feels like who you are.
Thank you.
And then Dixie, you talked about you. Now I've seen this as long as I've known you, so you haven't changed your logo in any way, shape, or form since you started, or have you?
I changed my logo about 4 times early on, like the first 5 years of my career, because I was really figuring out who I was. And then eventually I kind of settled on this. This is like the Vogue font, basically, and it's just straight and to the point. And I may end up doing a little bit of editing to that this year, just to kind of evolve and change things up a little bit. But it's very simple. I like simplicity. And, those fonts, it's incredible how fonts kind of can evoke emotion. Different fonts have different feelings associated with them, and I wanted to go something that was more high fashion, like the Vogue font, that feels fashionable, commercial. So that's kind of what I went with this one.
I see that now. I see Vogue and all of that. See, and speaking from the corporation of Nikon, the one thing I learned very early on with logos was, how are you going to use that? Where is it going to be? Are you going to embroider a shirt? If you have a logo that's too complicated that can't be embroidered, you're kind of defeating the purpose of the logo. Is that important to you guys? And where do you use your logos?
Yeah, it's interesting because you have to look at everything. Like, does your branding have color in it? Is that the background? Is that part of the text? Does it work on black? Does it work on white? Does it work on embroidery? Will it work on a website? Can it fit into a square in a symbol of social media? There are so many things. And just a recommendation out there, guys, there is an app called What the Font. So if, let's say, for example, You
did say font, right?
Font.
Font.
What the font.
F-O-N-T.
So
font.
let's say you see a font that represents a sensibility that you're trying to portray to potential clients. You can photograph it, and then you basically just type it in, and it'll tell you what the font is. Now, good fonts, you'll usually have to buy. The ones that you can get in Photoshop and all those things, they're just standard. A good font might cost $500-600 for a family of fonts, but it means that not many people have it, which makes you stand out a little bit. Like that one's Dido, and it costs a lot of money, but it means that you have it, and it's fantastic. So, and again, straight away you think, Vogue or Harper's Bazaar and all that kind of stuff. So it's important.
Dixie, do you know what the font he's talking about?
I do. I'm like really funny about fonts.
I couldn't help myself, sorry.
But I'm so happy to know about this app.
Yeah.
I know.
Because I see fonts all the time that I'm inspired by, like when you watch a film and the credits where they use a cool font. I'm like, I wish I could figure out what that is so I could utilize that in some ads and stuff. So glad to know that.
And speaking from the Nikon side, we have different iterations of the font. We have squares with Nikon on the lower part of a yellow square with light rays. We have Nikon across, red registered trademarks. We actually produced a branding guide for the people that use our logo. They have to follow our branding guide, because if they don't, then obviously our product is going to be misrepresented in the way we intended it. So Deanne, is that important to you?
It's a little bit important to me. I don't use my logo all that often. I have it in my packaging when clients purchase products. You know, I package everything up really beautifully with like lavender and feathers and lace.
Aww.
And that part is important to me, and my branding is on that. And in my educational offerings for students, I have my branding, but I think for me, it's more about my images and the experience that I'm giving clients than it is about my logo.
That's very important. I love that.
Love that.
So let's talk a little bit about website design and strategy. As I started to dig into your websites and I started to screen grab a few things, talk about your concept for the website. What are you trying to draw the viewer into, your customers into?
I really just want to show my inquiring clients images. I wanted to maximize how large they are, and I feel like less is more, so I wanted my website to feel pretty simple. This has gone through many iterations, and I see a lot of things that I could change and add, and you know, I feel like I've gotten peace to the fact that I'll never just absolutely love my website. There's always going to be things that I think could be improved and could be added or changed. So it's simple, it's very image heavy, and those are the things that are important to me. There's a lot of buttons you can push. It's easy to contact me on every page. I show my Instagram on every page. Like, I have a lot of places where people who are booking can interact and click, and that's also good for SEO, and Google likes a website where you have a lot of links and where people stay a little while and look around.
I think it's so important, too, that you have to follow the regulations of the country and the laws that are involved now. And there aren't many web pages that you pull up that say, do you accept all the cookies, which is a way of tracking people, and people have to opt in to what you do. So it's so important to follow those guidelines. Jerry, talk about the importance of the legal side of how you communicate with people.
I mean, everyone is looking for a fight, if that makes any sense. So they're trying to find a weakness in what you do. And I think in a world where, you know, the pendulum shifts different ways and people have different sensitivities, the low-hanging fruit, just get rid of the legal stuff that is a problem, make sure we comply, and certainly that's a continuing, evolving thing that we all have to manage.
And we at Nikon, as employees, we take tests about privacy and privacy laws and protecting your information. And it may not seem like the glamorous part of all this in presenting yourself and the brand, but that is what we have to deal with on a regular basis. And it doesn't just affect big corporations. It affects everybody that runs a business in this country.
Yeah.
So always keep that a part of it. And I see you bring out your workshops, you talk about education. But what I want to ask, and let me go to you, Dixie, is when you look at the percentages of how you communicate, I remember when I built a website, I thought that, oh my God, that was great. And then I realized how unimportant I was, and my other role was more about being a Nikon person. And that social started to be more important of where the engagements were, and the website became sort of secondary. Is that true for you guys, or you Dixie?
You know, I think they both work together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice when people can get sort of a sense of who you are on social media. So I'm going to show things on social media that I don't necessarily share on my website. And I think it's good for them to get sort of a behind-the-scenes look at who you are. So sharing some more personal stuff on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever it is, I think is really important. I think it's like 50-50, because when they go to the website and they see the collection of the body of work put together in the way that you want to put out in the world, I think that's really important, because it's like all about that beautiful presentation. And Instagram or social media is a little bit different. It's more off the cuff, I think. And just having that presentation is really good. I mean, for me, it's been extremely important.
And Jerry, I know you have multiple websites for training and your main page. We'll talk about your training in just a little bit. How important are galleries? I want you all to speak about the galleries and how much you update them. I feel like that's a lot of work to do. How do you deal with all that?
I try to update my galleries at least once a year. I should be doing it more often, but at least once a year when it's a little bit of downtime. You update images because, like, I shoot weddings, portraits, fashion, boudoir. There's a whole bunch of genres, and you want to put your best work out there. And it's interesting. I have a philosophy, especially if you're doing domestic photography. I suggest that you try to make people laugh, make people cry, and hold their breath. What does that mean? Joyful images, making people laugh. Not comedic images, but joyful, beautiful, spirited images. Make them cry. Meaningful shots that just make you emotional. Hold your breath. Wow. The feedback that I got recently, and it was an eye-opener, and I want to share it with you because it's something that I know I can do better. I was at a workshop, and one of my students basically said, "Hey, I referred a friend of mine to book you for their children's wedding." And I said, "Oh, thank you. That's well, they looked at your website, they loved your work, but you didn't have any party shots or party. You didn't have any party shots on the website." I'm like, "Well, they're easy. I mean, they're so stupid easy. You just put the flash above your head, you bounce the flash, and you get people doing stupid things. Like, they're in my albums." But they said, well, but they didn't see it on the homepage within a couple of scrolls. And the new generation, and I say this with all respect, I feel like what I'm seeing from the inquiries that I'm getting, for weddings in particular, they're less concerned about the story, but they want just party shots. And so that's what I'm missing. So I'm like, well, hell, I'm going to go back to my catalog, because I've heard this more than once. And even though I've got some great shots and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like, yes, I need to add that. Make them cry, and make them laugh, make them cry, hold their breath, and make them party. So that's what I'm basically going to do as well. I'm going to add that. But that was really important feedback for me.
Deanne, talk about your galleries and your approach.
Sure. Well, I love that. I think that, knowing that someone like Jerry is still learning and getting feedback from people that, aren't colleagues, but just from the general people inquiring about his work, that's such good information. I think at the beginning when you're building your brand, it feels like, oh, you're going to get to this place where you've got everything figured out and you're really dialed in. But I mean, if this guy's still learning, then no one's ever going to stop learning. So I think that was great. And one thing for me, the difference between my website and Instagram is I feel like I have two different audiences. My website it's where clients find me for the most part, and Instagram is where students find me. And so I get to do a lot of teaching, and anytime I have a workshop or a retreat that I'm announcing, I share it on Instagram, and that's where I get, all my signups for those. So I've been able to use both really effectively, but most of my clients are return clients, but most clients who are new are finding me from the good SEO I have from my website. A few a year, a small handful find me on Instagram, and they're usually out of state, and they'll come in for a photo shoot. But most of my clients are finding me on my website still.
And Jerry, I'm sure there's a way that you interweave your different types of pages of where you're sharing things. Talk a little bit about education and the sales part of all this, because I think that becomes a big part of the business in selling the products that you have.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll start with selling to normal clients. And when I say normal clients, there's fellow photographers who are clients who buy educational products from me, but then I'm a working professional, so I still do it. One thing I wanted to add is, I think many of us, what we do is we want to show our prettiest work on our website. Would you agree? Like, these are hero shots I want to put out there. What we're missing is printed product. So you cannot get a wedding or a portrait from me unless you buy a printed product, which means there are like 10 wedding albums on my website where you see the entire story. There's a bride's hand touching the album. There's wall art in a particular wall space of a house of the kind of clientele that I want. So if you're not selling albums or printed work, it's because you're only showing pretty pictures. You're not selling the dream or the finished product in the environment that it would be into, if that makes any sense. Now, because I have many websites and I have many entities, I simplified, like if I have a conversation with you guys, like if you want to learn from me in person or online or want to be photographed by me, go to jerryjerryjerry.com. Now, you'll remember that, wouldn't you? Like, you won't remember anything else, but you'll remember jerryjerryjerry.com. That's the link in my bio on Instagram. But if I have a conversation with someone, they'll remember it even without writing it down. So everything just leads to my Instagram bio, and that's where you'll see all the entities that I run off.
That's so smart. Obviously, the easier people remember you, the better.
So, yeah, DixieDixie.com, Deanne.com, Marsha.
That's too hard. My name doesn't work.
So again, you're very diverse, and you have a product line. You're a photographer. You do video. You have products that you've created, Ice Light and the Omega Reflector. How do you keep it all together? Are you building all these sites yourself, or? Please tell me you've got some help here. Yeah, there's obviously template websites that make things easy. Like this one was just a Squarespace one. I use Good Gallery for my client stuff. But you have to sort of manage it
properly, for me, it's all cross-branded. Like there's all, one thing helps the other. Like, if I'm teaching, I might show the ice light. I might show the Omega, and then all of a sudden it points to it. And half of my clients are photographers now. So now they'll come to me because they know that they can trust me, and then they can just let go with a portrait. And then they've got a story tell when they go back to their clients. I put my money where my mouth is. I've got a portrait from a fellow photographer that I respect and I admire. Why don't you do the same? And all of a sudden it all cross-pollinates. So it's a process. It's never perfect. And don't beat yourself up over it. My advice is just put it in the calendar. This is when I'm going to source new images. This is when I'm going to achieve it. This is when I want to launch it. And you keep on chipping away. But just know it's a process and go easy on yourself. Don't, forgive yourself, but make a plan, an actionable plan.
I would guess that everybody here has a website of their own. I can't see hands out in the live stream audience. Did you build your own websites, or did you have somebody build it for you? See, back in my day, aging myself, you had to know code to build a website, and then it started to get easier and easier. Now it's all kind of drag and drop. Deanne, what's your best advice for anybody stepping into building a website right now? Where would they go? What would you tell them?
I think it's imperative to have a site like a WordPress site where you can have control of your SEO. I think, some of the template websites don't allow you to have so much control, and SEO is huge. It's your best marketing, that it's free marketing if you can get a website that has great SEO. So I found a guy to build my website, and he's continually refining it, and he'll pop things in and change things when I need to. And that's been huge for me because there's so much to do as a photographer and as a photography educator. And I think, knowing where your skill sets are and contracting out the work that someone's going to do better than you, that's been huge for me.
It's a great investment in the business.
Yeah,
now,
huge.
Dixie, you drawing people in with guys' abs here? What's the intent of your opening page as I've grabbed it off the site?
Absolutely. And, mine's evolved a lot. When I was about 5 years ago, my main page was more busy. It was kind of more like about me and all these different things. And then I went to this class where art directors and actual brands and ad agencies were looking and reviewing our websites. And they're like, your website is way too busy. You just need to have your best images on the main page. That's going to speak to art directors, and then they'll start picking around the galleries to try to get a little bit more info. So what I did with SEO, because the problem is you need text on the website in order for Google to recognize it. So I have my images first, like the first, and then at the bottom of the page, that's where I put all the SEO text. So Google will still find those pages. So that's been like paramount when I kind of redesigned my website and everything. 201 Creative is a great company for SEO for strictly photographers. So I've been working with them for about 5 years, and the amount of just random inquiries I get from bigger brands and ad agencies has been incredible.
And talk about subscribers and having people come in. Now, I saw this pop up on your page, and I had to screen grab it because you're inviting people in to subscribe. What are they subscribing to?
Yeah, so anytime I send out new work, things that I've worked on, different campaigns, people can subscribe to that email list. And this year I plan to be a lot more consistent with that. It's always a balance between productions and everything, but I think it's really important.
And Jerry, what's your best advice for building a subscription base and getting to those customers and building those numbers?
You have to give value. It's as simple as that. So, for example, it's interesting because for my normal client day-to-day work, I actually don't have that. I wish I did, and I should, but a lot of my audience are fellow photographers, and I give value. So I might create a product that is really affordable or free, and it gives incredible value, and then it's basically, we all know what's going to happen. You'll get a PDF or a guide from me or a video tutorial. That's the cost of admission. You could unsubscribe the day after, but if you find value in it and you want to learn more from me, that's where it is. So business is not about what can I get, it's what can I do for you, and then it's a continuous process.
Dixie, what blew me away, and same with you, Deanne, is all the brands that you work with or who you have worked with. Talk about the importance of the partnerships that you have with the brands or the clients that you've worked with, and I mean, they run off your page literally.
Yeah.
How important that is.
Absolutely. I mean, as a commercial fashion advertising photographer, really and truly, when people look at your website like a bigger brand, they want to see that you've worked with other bigger brands. So it's so important. So when you finally get to shoot for like a big company, be sure and blast that out everywhere, because you just never know who's going to see that and then end up hiring you. But honestly, the people that I work with, I mean, especially Nikon, you guys are such a family. Like such a family.
We try.
And so I kind of become that way with a lot of my clients. They can know that they can go to me for certain things, certain lifestyle work, and just keeping that together I think is really important. I had an agent for a bit of time, and I found that I lost a lot of the connection with my clients. And so I find that when I handle these productions myself with my own team, I just keep that consistency. It's all about relationships.
Well, you bring that up with Nikon, and I can address that side, especially from the ambassador program that I created back in 2014. Talent is essential, diversity is essential, certainly the attitude is essential. You know, I've seen so many great photographers out there that present themselves so poorly. And, you know, people, but I've shot Nikon for 50 years. That doesn't necessarily make you a good person. And then you start looking around websites and looking at information, and you start to say, maybe it's not the best fit for us. So that's so important to know the right people. And what's beautiful about Dixie, and what I remember the most, is she came to me one day and said, I now represent a hat company. Yeah. How important is the connections and relationships that you have to now being a representative of a hat company now because of your style?
It's a fun experience. So you think about these offshoots of what you already do, like Jerry was saying. It's like you just never know, you know, how things can lead. Like a hat company saw me post all these images with these hats all over Instagram, and like, you need to work with a hat company. So I shoot content for them and then also wear their hats. So yeah, you just never know where things are going to lead.
More reach, more customers, more people that identify you, for sure. So I definitely want to dig in as we wind down into social engagement, because it's so important. Dixie, we'll start with you. Talk about your frequency in posting. Are you posting? Somebody else posting? Do you have somebody doing that for you? How do you keep up with all the shoots? Because I know you're everywhere, and I want you all to address this as we go through your social pages.
Absolutely. Social, I don't know if you guys relate to this, but social media has been a struggle. Can you guys relate, any of you?
And you are I Am Dixie?
I Am Dixie Dixon.
I Am Dixie Dixon.
Yeah, Dixie Dixon was not available, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's been a struggle when I'm doing shoots and then to continually keep up with social media. But I'm starting to find a better balance, and I at least try to post a couple times a week, new work and things that are coming out. And you can even use archived work that you've done like in the past too. Everything is new on Instagram and Facebook, and that's what I love about it, is you can share some older stuff too, and it all kind of mixes in there together. But I try to keep up with it regularly, show behind the scenes content.
We've seen video rise so much now in animation or video in the way you represent yourself. We're going to run this real quick. Feel free to talk through it or not. But how important, I want to ask all of you, is it to constantly post and show behind the scenes? Because I think in our world, we get more hits on our website for what happens behind the scenes in a shoot, more so than the actual product that you're producing for us.
Hey, Dixie Dixon here, Nikon Ambassador and Fashion Photographer. And this is a quick look into my camera bag. This is one of my favorite cameras, the Nikon Z9. It's perfect for low light photography, fashion shoots, fast action, one-way shows, high ISO. This thing is a workhorse. The Nikon Z8 is my favorite hybrid type of camera for when I need to go from shooting fashion stills to video on a gimbal. It's super lightweight, powerful, high resolution. The Nikon 8512 has probably been on my camera 80% of the time lately. Anything fashion related, it just makes everything look gorgeous with its compression.
So amazing.
And the 50 is really just a great versatile lens for any kind of fashion, like 3/4 length shots to full length. The new 35mm 1.4 is actually one of my favorite fashion lenses for full-length, wide-angle fashion shots, because it really accentuates the gowns and really create a beautiful environmental fashion look. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next fashion production.
So short, sweet. You know what I realized on that? I was on every one of those photo shoots with you.
You were?
Yes.
That's so true.
Deanne, do you do a lot of this type of engagement? Talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I do tons of engagement on Instagram. I post 2 to 5 times a week. Like gold standard is 5 times a week, but sometimes I just can't. So the thing I feel about Instagram is what kind of Jerry said, is about offering value. And I think that's how I got working with Nikon. That's how I became a Nikon ambassador. I think it comes down to, again, authenticity, sharing what you love, and not doing it for what you're going to get, but just doing it because you want to share with your audience. And so any brand that I work with today has approached me because it's kind of been slow over time, but it's because I'm just genuinely, authentically sharing something that I love. So I get a lot of questions about, like, how did you work with Nikon? How do you work with these different brands? And it started by sharing just authentically my love for them. So Instagram's a great place to just say, hey, look, I got this new fog machine, or I'm using these cool new lights. I got a cool new modifier, and I genuinely love it. And so I make reels, behind the scenes reels, all the time. Basically, every shoot that I have that I really like, I will do a BTS reel and show all my setup and my gear for it.
Do you edit your own reels? Sorry.
Yeah,
You do?
I
That's
do.
amazing.
I sit there.
She is the most amazing at
thanks.
Instagram. Like,
Thanks.
you guys have to follow her. I'm like blown
much
away
work.
by the content you're creating.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
truly.
so much.
I mean, she is consistent. She is authentic. I mean,
Thanks.
she's nailed it. It's amazing to
Thank
watch.
you.
Well,
It's a lot of work.
I don't know a
though.
time that I go on Instagram that I don't see a reel from Jerry Ghionis. And it's a lot of education. There's a lot of information. What is your
Yes,
approach?
it's
You're,
like
you're
tiger.
constantly out there. How do you do that?
I've got to tell you, I'm sick of my own face.
I'm not. I love your face.
I know that you guys get sick of seeing yourself and doing that stuff. Like sometimes you oversaturate yourself. So my strategy, and the reason why I've lasted over 3 decades in this industry, is I push and I pull. I push and I pull. And sometimes if I feel like I want people to miss me a little bit, I literally go dark for a little bit, and then I blitz again. So I have a marketing team that I work with that does a lot of my educational stuff. And then it's so weird. You want to present something really beautiful and special and professional, and the most stupid thing that makes people laugh gets the most views. I mean, the most award-winning image that I've done will not compare to a cat in a nun's outfit. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, so and that's the thing, is I'm a cheeky guy, and I sort of want to put more of myself out there, and I've found a bit of a formula recently where a lot of people tell me, I've learned from you, and I ask myself when I'm in a jam, what would Jerry do? So then I've done like a whole bunch of videos where, I show a little bit of a scene, and then what would Jerry do? And then I finish it off, and then there's the Jerry Springer chant at the end, because people would just every so often just chant my name, and it's become like a brand that I didn't even choose, but I've embraced it. It's just fun. So I don't take myself
I chant
too
your name
seriously.
at the end of every day. and I'm
We
going to
all
just
do.
show a quick snippet of this in a behind the scenes on a shoot that we worked on for the Z8.
Absolutely.
You had that cell phone content. Can we lower the volume just a little bit on the video, if possible? So quick hits with the cell phone,
Yeah.
perfect, right? But then you'll post a high-end, high-resolution production that's obviously produced with, like the world produced with Z8 cameras. How much of that do you mix in what you're posting, or how important is that?
I prefer to post mainly finalized kind of work. I do a little bit. I'm doing a little bit more off the cuff kind of phone type of stuff. But I think it's important to really put out there your very best stuff. Man, Jerry, what I love, your humor. Oh my gosh, you guys.
So good.
Some of the reels that you have posted are hysterical, not even photography related. I mean, it's just his personality shines through in everything he does. And I think that's what's so amazing about, getting to see and be inspired by other folks, is the more that you can be authentically you on your social media, on your website. That's really, I think, the main point that we're driving. Yeah.
And I wanted to bring this up, and I've kind of moved fast forward to it for the sake of time, but talk about how important it is to promote your workshops and the things that you're doing, Deanne.
Yeah, they're huge to share, and I think social media is like an amazing place to reach a lot of people, and a lot more people than I could reach from my website or from SEO. So, yeah, sharing my work through Instagram is huge. Was that your question?
Yeah. And
What did he ask?
You were great. It was perfect.
I just
well, you
blacked out.
obviously want to sell the workshop,
Yeah.
right? So yes,
Yeah.
it's social, but you put together a really nice ad. How are people getting to this? So is it on your social page or on your website?
Yeah, so this one I'll share through my website and through Instagram and through a newsletter that's just for my students that clients don't get. I teach business workshop too, and I'm really careful on Instagram and social media never to share any business tips or techniques, because I want to really respect my clients, and I wouldn't feel like great if I were a client looking at a photographer's website and they're talking about like how profitable they can be. So I'm kind of quiet about advertising business, but yeah, I advertise it all on my website and newsletters and social media.
What would Jerry do? I've seen so many of these. How often do you do this?
I ended up for several months because I wanted to test the format. I'm going to tweak it a little bit because I know I can do a bit better. But yeah, I would just spend a day doing 20 of them, 20 or 30. So there's one per business day, and then I've got the month. So I would prepare a month in advance and just sort of spit them out. And then you look at what works, what doesn't. And then I realized that I can improve my intro, like that quick little scroll, what can stop them in their tracks and keep on going forward. But it's interesting because people are going to want to buy from you if they want a beer with you, a beer or a drink. And that's the thing is that I'm very public, but I'm also very private. I'm an extrovert, but I'm also an introvert, if you really, truly know me. So I find sometimes I don't want to share a lot of my life personally, but if I share a photo with my dogs,
I was going to say the golden doodles are out there.
my baby, I've shot more of the photos of my dogs than in my whole career. But the funny thing is that if you're a dog parent, you totally identify with that person. Oh, you get it. So if I show my dogs and someone says, you know what, I want you to photograph me and my dogs, then straight away they identify with you. You have similar values. So I've got to get out of my own way. I'm telling you, this is a work in progress. We don't all have it right. Like we constantly are battling between what you put out, when you put it out, how much work do you give it up? It's not going to be as good as what you would do it, but is done better than perfect. There's all these things that we all think about, but just know that it's very normal. But I just think that, something is better than nothing. Something is better than nothing. Just get it out there.
Now, Deanne, you and I had spoke about this, and I want to bring this up as we close out, the connection with your clients. You mentioned it a little bit before. You have a piece that you hand out when you first have a client. Talk about, and all of you mentioned, how is it so important, and what do you do to connect with your clients?
Yeah, this is the most important part for me is because, I want my clients purchasing products and I want those products filling their homes, but they're not going to be great products if the memory from the session and the memory from the experience with me wasn't every bit as amazing as the images. So I really strive to give my clients an amazing experience. I think it also starts with being expensive. Being pricey sets yourself up as a more valuable photographer. This ensures you're taking yourself more seriously when you show up to a shoot. It ensures clients are taking you more seriously. They're more serious about what they wear and, showing up better prepared and more excited because there's this bigger transaction that's happening, and that kind of snowballs into you being a better photographer, and now the pictures are better, and now you can afford a prime lens, and now your pictures are even better, and they love them even more, and it's a snowball that happens where it just starts with being expensive, but then taking that expense seriously and giving your clients an amazing experience. So I really like to under-promise and over-deliver with every single interaction my clients have with me. I take that really seriously.
Jerry, I know you've had two different approaches within your life and your career, and a big studio that you work with multiple photographers, and you built your own studio now in Las Vegas. Talk about the importance of your branding and bringing people into a place that you create.
It's a great question. I think that many of us, wouldn't you agree that, do you start your business and you name your business after your personal name or a nondescript name? Actually, could we just go back for one step? I think it's important to show. So the thing is that if you name your business after your individual name, it's very difficult to sell. But every prospective business owner starts a business one day to sell it, except for us. In the fashion industry, car industry, you can sell the business under a name. Versace, McQueen, they still continue on beyond the person's life. So for me, when I started in business, when I was 20, I think it was in 97, I built this very big studio, and I started with my personal name, but I said to myself, I want to sell it. So I rebranded to Excite, and the cinema that you see, we were so busy, we would see 6 couples at once. So we would basically have a little cocktail party. The sixth couple would come in every Tuesday, Thursday night. We built a cinema, big screen, surround sound. This is in 2000. This is like 25 years ago. And we were one of Australia's largest studios. I learnt my craft, I learnt branding, but everyone knew Excite. And how did I come up with that name? I was playing Scrabble and I realized that X, Q, J, Z were the highest, like they're more rare. I'm like, let me start my business name with X, it's provocative. And then I'm like, what do I do? Expensive, I can't call myself expensive. Exquisite, not bad. Excite, sight, vision, excite, I've got it. And it worked really well.
I'm totally with him on, you just totally hooked me. And then storefront?
Yeah, so then I sold that business and I'm like, all right, I've done that. I've done really well. Let me open up a business under my personal name. So now I can promote the individual artist rather than if I promoted myself as an individual because I'm the award winner, then everyone else who works with me is second best. I didn't care about ego. I just wanted everyone to book Excite. So this was just till recently my studio in Las Vegas. And now I run my studio from my home because I've got a place big enough to do both as I used to. But without saying a word, people walk in, they see the work, they see a nice presence, and they have a certain sensibility. So on my albums, at the bottom right there, you see that silver, that's literally a solid piece of silver with a black diamond. That was inspired by this ring, so this is no word of a lie. Every one of my clients would get a solid piece of silver jewelry with a black diamond on their album. No one in the world was stupid enough to do that. But that's why they feel special and feel unique. And that symbol represents French aristocracy, like it's a fleur-de-lis. But if you look at it closely, it has my initials. So you can have your brand, but you can also have a symbol, not dissimilar to Louis Vuitton, and then you have those repeating shapes. So you can use that for branding, you can use that for gift wrapping, ribbons, and so you just have fun with it. And my advice to you is if you don't understand this, realize that the fashion industry have spent billions of dollars working on what attracts the audience. So go to your local Rodeo Drive, work out what kind of client you want that fits a sensibility, but don't copy the logo of Louis Vuitton. And like it might be the color palette from one, might be the font of another, and then you mold it into your own, and then it slowly becomes authentic and real.
I think that little accent speaks volumes to value. No doubt. Whenever I buy products that have some subtle little accent like that, it means everything to me and feeling like I just bought the right product. So we'll wind out serving your community. Talk a little bit about each of you, what you do. You have Ice Society, Jerry. You've got different ways of giving back. If you guys do that, please feel free to chime in. I'll start with you, Jerry, and then with you ladies.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was doing my brands, my educational website was called Ice Society, Inspire, Challenge, Educate. Society, then I started a charity, Soul Society. Then I invented the Ice Light. So everything cross-pollinates so that when people think of a word, they associate with you.
Beautiful. Ladies, how do you work within your community? How do you get your community going?
I love to mentor. I love to teach other photographers. I always have at least one photographer that I'm just mentoring just to help them out. And I feel like, we all stand on the backs of giants, and it's kind of our obligation if we've had a lot of abundance and if we've had a lot of success to then share it with others. So right now, that's how I'm giving back.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to go speak at colleges and really connect with the folks that are really coming up in the industry. Honestly, it ends up inspiring me more than I think I inspire them because I'm just so, just blown away by what they're doing, out of these schools. And we also do a lot of kind of business headshot, like headshot happy hours to kind of give back to the community. And things kind of just come along organically, and it looks like something that I want to do, and we kind of go and create it. So
I thought you were going to get roped by the cowboy that just walked away with
I just photographed him yesterday.
Now, can I just add one thing? If you're local here, like last night, the team said, Jerry, do you want to go to the rodeo? I'm like, hell yes, I want to go to the rodeo.
Australian at a rodeo.
So we went along with the team, and I saw the best thing I've seen with my own two eyes. It's called mutton bustin'.
Anybody know what mutton bustin' is? Because I didn't know until they came back and told me.
Okay, you got to Google it. It's the best thing ever. It's sheep, and these 4 5-year-olds with helmets and padding. They jump on the back and they hold on for dear life, and the person who holds on the longest wins $500. And ironically, they won more than some of the like
Yeah,
the professionals. It was the best thing you've ever seen. So mutton busting, that's what I'm going to call my business.
Only in Fort Worth in the stockyards. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to close out this show for this year. It's been a great, great show. Dixie, Deanne, Jerry, thank you for your insight. I mean, it's almost always so fun to talk to you. I wish we had more time. We did go a little bit over, but I don't care. We got a lot of great content here. You guys are amazing. Thank everybody for coming to the booth this year. We hope we did a great job for you. If you're tuning in again or here, we're going to be posting these shows. Every one of them will be online at the Nikon website. For Nikon, I'm Mike Corrado. And I guess we'll all just sign off for now. Till next year. Great to see you all.